Every Who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton, but where to get great prices on gifts they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one Who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and no prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as Who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
It's October the 7th, 2023. At the London station of the Mossad, Israel's intelligence agency, the officers are watching with horror and despair as the attacks on Israel unfold. How will they reckon with the intelligence failure that helped allow this to happen? And what next for the Mossad London station and its chief, Eli Amran, in this post-October the 7th world? This is the world of the brilliant new spy thriller from Merle Nygate, The Protocols of Spying. My name is Antonia Senior. I'm the host of Spy Masters. Listen in as we talk about the challenges of writing a spy novel with a backdrop of events that are still unfolding. And don't forget to subscribe and follow us for more great chat about spies. And now I'll hand you over to me, talking to Merle Nygate about the protocols of spying. Merle, thank you so much for coming on the Spy Masters podcast.
It's a pleasure. It's lovely to be back.
So we're here to talk about the third book in your series about the Mossad London chief, Eli Amran. And this new book, The Protocols of Spying, is quite an unusual book in how it was written. We will explore that in great depth. But first of all, could you just give my listeners who haven't come across Eli a little potted history of who he is and what's about to happen to him in this book?
Okay, so Eli is the head of London Station for the Mossad at the moment. And in the first book, he was aspiring to that title. In the second book, he gets there. And in the third book, he is the head of London Station. He's a good guy doing a dirty job. And he's a bit of a posh boy. He's a bit of a snob, but he changes during the course of the three books. And as this book begins on October the 7th. So it's the immediate aftermath of the events on October the 7th and the consequences of those events. And it covers the 6 months after October the 7th.
So can you just talk to me a little bit about the timing of you actually writing the book? Like, when did you start writing it? Because obviously one of the unique things about this book is that you're writing a political thriller about events that are unfolding in real time and in fact are still unfolding, way after you finished writing it. Can you talk to me about how your specific timing slotted into the geopolitical events that you're covering?
Well, not terribly well, actually. Okay, so the second book, I finished the second book, Honor Among Spies, and I sent my draft off to the publisher, job done, that's it. On October the 5th, 2023, thinking, oh, fantastic,
wow,
sit and have a rest. And then 2 days later, the world changed and, we're still reeling from the results collectively of what's happened in the Middle East. And I was very hesitant about it. And in fact, in June of 2024, I was talking to the publisher, Jamie Hodder-Williams at No Exit Press, and I was saying, I actually pitched him another idea, which I thought was a better idea, because I didn't want to write about October 7th, because I knew it was going to be extremely difficult, and I'm pretty lazy about writing, and I just thought, I don't want to, tackle something that is so hard. Anyway, he said, don't you think the readers deserve to see what happens to Eli and his crew in these circumstances. So after sort of stamping my feet a little bit, I thought, yes, I probably do need to write this book. And I do have, it was slightly, if I don't do it, who else does it? Because I've lived with these characters for since 2015, 2016. And so it has been so consequential. So I thought, yes, okay, I will write about what has happened to them as a result of these events. But it's just 6 months after, because things have escalated. They have changed. And I was writing it. I finished writing it, the first draft, on December the 4th last year. So a lot's happened since then.
So you started unfolding, which it was always going to. But I can see the logic, because you couldn't, I guess, write a book about, the London station of Mossad that's contemporary without October the 7th in it, because it's everything.
Exactly. Yeah. It wouldn't have made any sense. And so having in Honor Among Spies, there's I'm writing about a little bit about the Ukraine war. I'm writing about drones. So I'm writing about contemporary events. And I'm also, in the type of book that I'm writing, I'm trying to be realistic. I'm trying to make it seem, even though, of course, it's fiction, but I'm trying to create this sort of reality. And I do, research, and I look up, the tech, and I try and say, okay, so that tech does actually exist. So it would have been absolute nonsense to write the third book without writing about October the 7th, because it is so consequential.
The opening chapters, which is like the days of the immediate response. So there's obviously the kind of characters' personal responses, which we'll get to in a second, but the kind of operational responses seem to me to be very authentic, the way you depicted what the immediate responses were of the station chiefs and stuff. Did you get any help on that, or is that all from your head?
It's I'd say it was about 95% inside my head. I did talk to somebody in the summer of last year whose wife was in military intelligence, and just sort of said, because the immediate question, in fact, my immediate reaction was, my God, what an intelligence disaster this is. And I think that was, everybody's response worldwide. I mean, it was, it was 9/11, which, if you go back to that, the intelligence was there about, there was likely to be, an attack, but you can have the best intelligence in the world, but if you haven't got the analysis, if they're not passing it up, the chain, and you haven't got the political response, nothing's going to happen. And just like switching to the Second World War, Stalin didn't believe that, the Germans would, he had the intelligence, I'm sure that the Germans were going to attack, but he didn't believe it. So, in answer to your question, that little bit was checked out when I just that, they apparently investment in the army has sort of gone down a bit, and that they were relying on the tech, the signals intelligence, and their emphasis was on Hezbollah and on Iran and not on Gaza. So, mistakes were made.
I think that sense of a huge intelligence failure is sort of exaggerated, I think, because everybody has a high estimation of Israeli intelligence. So it seemed like even more of an astonishment that the intelligence failures was so huge. And in fact, I've heard a number of conspiracists say to me that the only possible explanation for the catastrophic intelligence failure was that the Israeli government knew, and they were willing to let it happen in order to give them an excuse for genocide, which I find, it's extraordinary that such things.
It is extraordinary. Okay, it is. But I suppose that's the sort of joy of a conspiracy theory, is that you can come on, you can, you can make it as big and as bold as you like. No, I mean, as I said, I mean, in fact, there was conspiracy theories about 9/11, so yeah, I mean, cock
Is it
up.
conspiracy? Is it cock up? It's always cock up as far as I can work out.
Yeah, but I do, and I don't know whether I actually explore. I do say, I think Petra says something in the book about it. But yeah, mistakes are made. Massive, massive mistakes are made, and we do sort of tend to be. I mean, if things work out, that's a bonus. But I mean, in all areas, mistakes are made.
Absolutely. So the response operationally kind of makes sense. They're all sort of, trying to gather themselves. But I thought what was very affecting was the personal response to from the agents who are gathered, or the officers who are gathered in Mossad headquarters in London, and they all, they're making phone calls home, and they all know people who've been affected. And I found it very moving, and I wondered if that was difficult to write, because obviously that's kind of, that deeply personal stuff sometimes isn't always in the kind of thriller world.
Listen, this is why I didn't want to do it, because it was so difficult. And I had to make the choice that I didn't. Okay, one of the decisions I made was I wasn't going to show or if you wanted to, what was the live streaming. I wasn't going to describe that. I just described what people's responses were. And also, I mean, I'm sure, we've all had that experience. When something ghastly happens, everybody goes home. Everybody, your first, is, are you okay? Are you okay? Sort of, during the sort of like, in the COVID days, we were contacting people we hadn't, been in touch with for a while. Say, are you all right? Are you coping? So, so these, these, core responses that we make when we feel threatened were the ones that I explored. And I mean, that really was what was going on, of everybody messaging everybody else and saying, are you all right? What the hell's going on?
They also feel your characters as Jews living in Britain. They don't feel safe. I found that very affecting. Ellie says at one point he's like on the tube when he's on his way home after watching all the horror, and he said there's no safety, not anymore, not for any Jew anywhere. And I just found that very moving and depressing. And I just, can you just talk me through, was that a widespread response within the Jewish community?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's tragically, it's a real thing. And I mean, I've grown up in a world where it was just like, whether or not I was a Jew was completely inconsequential, because I'm secular. I don't do this. I don't do that. I mean, like, I eat the food when I want to eat the food, I mean, and, it has become a thing, and it's quite extraordinary. And it was, I think, actually on Among Spies, I talk about 2017 Charlottesville, when I first came across replacement theory, and I was perplexed, because I just thought, this is bonkers. I don't really understand what actually that's all about, because I've never heard.
Could you just expand on it for people who don't know what it's about?
All right, okay, so. In 2017 in Charlottesville, which is like one of the southern states of America, there was a march with all these like rednecks who were sort of saying Jews will not replace us, Jews will not replace us. And I when I sort of heard that, I thought, well, why would anybody, or any sort of like Jew, be interested in? I mean, I'm sure Charlottesville is probably a perfectly nice place to live. I don't know. But, why would they think that I would be interested in replacing them? In whatever they're doing. And that was the first time I'd heard of it. And since then, it has become a real thing, and it's quite extraordinary, because I have a friend who I was friendly with when I was 20. When you're 20 and all you're interested in is clothes, boys, jobs, I mean, those are one's priorities. And then she got in touch with me years and years later. I didn't know she was Jewish, and she didn't know I was Jewish, because it wasn't a thing. it was irrelevant. But now it has become relevant, and it's extremely unpleasant, really. So that's
And I
you know,
guess the idea as well that one of your characters, Yossi, who hasn't previously been in your other books, a particularly sympathetic character, he gets drunk after October the 7th, and it's really sad. He says, "Why us? Why can't
yeah.
we ever be safe?" And I just think maybe this idea that for Jews outside Israel that your targets from both the left and the right now is.
I know. Yeah.
So these are all very difficult and sensitive things to handle within the novel, but I suppose in one sense you are helped by the conventions of the genre that you actually also have to write a kind of plot, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
not all just.
No. I can't. I mean, okay, poor me. I mean, I had to balance the damn thing.
Yeah.
So I've got like these layers. I mean, so the story has to work.
Yeah.
I can't just have 300 pages of whining.
I mean, I've read books like that, Mel, but they don't sell well.
Yeah. And then I had also, because I mean, one of the attractions of writing the third book, there was always going to be a third book. I'm really interested in disinformation. It's just something that fascinates me, and I think I've and just how ideas how when manipulated and what is truth, it's really worries me. Anyway, so I knew I had the theme, and I knew that I wanted the characters who I've sort of nurtured over 2 books so that continue their journeys. And as I said, I had a plot as well, which I thought was, that when I first started writing, the publisher said, "Do I have any ideas for your other books?" And I sort of wrote down 20 ideas. So I could do that. So this was one of them, that plot about the assassination. So all that stuff was in place. And then I had this additional layer to have to explore as well. So it was, I mean, it was a tough call. It was a really hard book to write.
With new, gentler scented Clorox disinfecting wipes, clean finally smells as good as it feels. On everything from lamps to ceiling fans. Even on your kid's toy shark. Oh, ouch. Clorox disinfecting wipes. Now available in crisp lemon. Find it on Amazon. Clorox. Clean feels good.
Meet the computer you can talk to. With Copilot on Windows, working, creating, and collaborating is as easy as talking. Got writer's block? Share your screen with Copilot Vision to help spark inspiration, and use Copilot Voice to have a conversation and brainstorm ideas. Or maybe you need some tech help. With Copilot Vision, Copilot sees what you see. Let Copilot talk you through step-by-step guidance so you can master new apps, games, and skills faster. Try now at windows.com/Copilot.
So Ellie's part in the post-October 7th response is he's given the job of trying to recruit someone who can be in the post-Hamas government, because at that stage, rather beautifully, there seems to be the kind of possibility for an ending to things and a post-Hamas world.
It will end. I mean, listen, the 100 Years' War ended, Northern Ireland ended, wars end.
That's true. That is true. So at that point, and you make the case, and I think, again, this is one of those points where the geopolitics and your plot coincide incredibly neatly, is the point is made in the book that without a strategy, an exit strategy, all that is going to happen in Gaza is just lots of noise and thunder and horror, and with no particular sort of end game. So what Ellie is tasked with is finding one part of one possible end game. So can you just expand on that, on Ellie's plan?
The person that he finds is the sister of the character in the first book.
The brother.
Yeah, the brother. Okay, so in the first book, I send him off to America to be a student. Okay, so he's, off he goes. And as I said, I always planned to bring him back. So now I had something for him to do. Anyway, so the brother, he is going to be recruited, and because he's like terribly clever, and he is going to go back. Well, this is the idea, and he's going to be someone who can form or be in a government that can actually help the people, Palestine and in Gaza, to sort of build their region and, create calm and wealth and a future. And so one of the things Ellie says is that it has to be secular. So that's like one of the things that I sort of like. I think you do. Yeah, because as soon as you bring God into any equation into government, and you've got like this third party with rules and regulations or ideas or commandments that don't actually aren't relevant.
And the same is true for Israeli characters, right? So amongst the spies, the ones who...
Sorry.
Don't worry. That's okay. We can edit that bit out.
Okay. Okay, go on.
The same is true. Your aversion to the presence of God in kind of political life also extends to a version of God as a presence in office politics, right? Because amongst the people working from the Mossad, the people that you are obviously less enamored of are those, religious hardliners who are aligned with the religious hardliners in the government. And these are the ones who are causing problems by not being, by not acting rationally often.
Yes, no, Nathan. In fact, Nathan, he has a role in the second book. He also has like a little role in the first book, and indeed, Yossi, he is in the first book. He's always this sort of jobs-worthy guy, and in the second book.
And these are the two hardliners, basically.
Well, they are. Nathan is a snake. He's a hardliner. He believes he's doing God's work. And yes, okay. And this is, as the author, I don't think that's terribly helpful.
So Ellie's off looking for a secular, non-God bothering Palestinian option to join the potential kind of rebuilding of Gaza, but also be a Mossad asset. And to help him, he enlists another character who has appeared in previous books, whose name is Petra. Now, Petra's interesting. Tell us about Petra. I like Petra.
Okay, everybody likes Petra. Okay, so Petra, in the first book, she's grown. Again, she's a character who's really, really developed, and she's become stronger and stronger. And so in this book, I wanted to give her a chance so that she is going to be the case officer. She is the case officer. She is going to recruit Wazim, and she's going to run him. And that's a huge step up for her. And there's lots of reasons why she's going to be good with this. And so I wanted to show her growth. And I wanted to show her growth in confidence and competence. Yeah.
Yeah. And she sets off, she's at the beginning of the book, she just doesn't know whether she wants to be involved. And I think, that's part of the theme of the book, isn't it? People sort of, how involved do you want to get and how involved do you need to be? And then these events happen and there's a sense that sort of everybody's involved anyway. So
yeah. Yes, so she has to. Exactly. Yeah.
And obviously, without, I don't want to go too far into anything that might end up being a spoiler, but can you just give us a sort of inkling of how this whole situation unfolds without spoiling anything? So you've got Petra trying to recruit Wassim, you've got Ellie fighting firefights with office politics back in the London Mossad, and then obviously there's, the wider geopolitical issue.
Yeah.
So how's it unfolding?
Well, Ellie, he is fighting battles on all fronts. His wife, who's this super duper duper post-traumatic child stress psychologist, so her immediate response is she goes back to Israel to, try and help all the kids who have been traumatized by the event. So he's in London on his own. And he's also trying to stop this assassination attempt, which he's very dubious about.
Can you tell us a bit more about the assassination attempt, or do you think it's...
Well, okay, so Ellie's trying to recruit the guy who's hopefully going to sort of help Palestine and Gaza grow again. And his rival, this horrid man, he's heard from somebody who is in Donald Trump's wider circle, and that it will be beneficial to Israel if someone who's very critical of Donald Trump is assassinated. And so Ellie's response is like, this is like, we can't do this, this is not what we do. And at that time, Donald Trump hadn't been elected as president. So this is like a sort of like a mafia hit job. I mean, we don't do that. And so Ellie is very dubious about it. He fights against it, and then he also investigates exactly what is going on with this so-called person who is close to the Trump inner circle.
The Mossad has form in political assassinations in a way that other agencies definitely don't admit to, but, potentially don't have quite much.
Okay, so I used that they apparently in Gibraltar, the Mossad did assassinate people who were involved with the IRA.
As a favour to Mrs. Thatcher,
as a favour to Mrs. Thatcher. But in that incident, they were terrorists. 1, 2, Mrs. Thatcher was in power. So the way I saw it was like, okay, this person, at that time isn't in power, and it's somebody who's just, critical. I mean, you could say, okay, well, and it is one step too far.
It's quite an interesting. It creates an interesting thing, doesn't it? Because if you work for an organisation that crosses lines, then at some point somebody else is going to have a different definition than you do of where that line is.
Yes,
yeah. For Ellie, that's the kind of moral dilemma of who am I and who are we as an organisation, and therefore who are we as a country.
Yes, exactly. And that's, as I said, when we're no spoilers, but I mean, that's the thing that he feels very strongly about is, there are lines, and that's one line that he doesn't want to cross. So there's this enormous, which there, obviously is, internal conflict within the institution.
And is there a sense, do you think, that the October the 7th itself just made all previous lines redundant? Or do you think that's the point, that Ellie's like, we have to keep the lines regardless, otherwise who are we?
Well, okay, so I don't know, but I think the dust is still settling. I mean, one of the things that I do believe is that big events like this are consequential, and it changes everything, and it changes things in ways that, the law of unexpected consequences is that we don't know what's going to happen. So I think it's anybody's guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, do you, at this point of publication, and the event, I mean, this is a very difficult question, but knowing what you know now about what's happened subsequent to the ending of your novel, right? So you're 6 months after October 7th, we're now 2 years. Would you have written it any differently, or do you think it all still hangs?
Ooh, I might have fought even harder not to write it. I just said, while I wait until, just wait a bit longer and just see what's going to happen. Because, no one, expected it to go on this length of time.
No.
But
then I do think maybe that's one of the book's strengths, because, that sense of kind of dislocation and almost panic that comes after it, and that sense of not quite knowing where the end game was, that all feels very true to what happened then, but also, I guess, prophetic to what's happening now. It's like,
but we are still in this situation that, nearly 2 years later, we're still, and we don't know what's going to happen. So, and one of the things I did was I tried to give it a bit of more of an upbeat ending. Not a really, really down ending. I just thought, Christ, who's going to want to read 300 pages of that it really is, absolutely awful. But I mean, frankly, I don't know what the answer is. I mean, my mood does fluctuate about, whether it's going to be all right or not. Because everyone
Yeah,
seems to have gone
absolutely.
nuts. You know,
Everyone's
collective.
gone nuts. I mean, yeah, this is a topic well beyond the scope of your book, but there's a moment where Ellie is on a bus and it's like days after October the 7th, and there's, you know, Israeli protests and pro-Palestinian protests, and he just sort of hides in his duffel coat. And I think as a sort of, you know, bystander, the fact that so many people feel so invested in a conflict that really is not our conflict, I find, and I have such incredibly, like, you know, relationship ending opinions about it as well. Well, I find it very difficult to have any opinions because it's so complicated and difficult and heartbreaking.
Yeah. But I mean,
So-
if you think about it, ever since Brexit, I mean, things started to go nuts then. You know, people having really, really, really strong opinions about things. And, I mean, and it's not just, it's not just, you know, Gaza and Palestine. It's just people, and in fact, that's the thing I say at the end of the book, is that people are really emoting in extreme ways and just not taking a step back and thinking, well, you know, let's just look at this, you know, reasonably. So I think it's just one element of it. It's not just the Middle East.
No, you're right. It's a wider sort of cultural
Yeah.
shift. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I do have one very strong opinion, which is that people should definitely run out and buy this book and the two previous ones if they can, because I mean, I think as a triptych, as a sort of a way of kind of looking in upon that part of the world while also reading wonderful novels that with characters that you really care about. I think they're unmatched of anything that I can think of in parallel. I can't think of anyone doing quite what you're doing. The geopolitics in a way that's, you know, wise and tender, but also with great stories. So
Thank you. That's very kind of you to say that.
I urge my listeners to go out and read them. And I hope that maybe in the future we have some more of Ellie. But Merle, in the meantime, thank you so much for coming on the Spy Masters podcast.
Pleasure. Absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to follow, tweet, spread the word so that we can keep bringing you more brilliant writers talking about spies. Don't miss an episode of the Spy Masters podcast.